Hey, gang, this is Christine Potvin, and you're watching the Paladina Show. And I'm very excited. We have an amazing person here. This is James Roguski. And Jim, why don't you tell people, if they don't already know who you are, who you are?
Well, in many ways, I think I'm just a normal person like everyone else. I find myself in interesting circumstances. About 2.5 years ago, I was awakened by whatever wakes you up at 4 in the morning, and I felt compelled to go search on the internet. And I stumbled into a blog that had a document. And so I clicked on the, hyperlink document and fell down the WHO rabbit hole. I found a document from the US government that was amending the international health regulations. And I had just finished doing a lot of research on the quote unquote pandemic treaty. And I realized, hey, wait a minute. This document that I found at 4 in the morning is totally different. It was amendments to international regulations. A lot of people, and you got to realize this is back in March of 2022, people were talking about this proposed pandemic treaty. And I realized, wait a minute, there's two separate things going on here. Well, fast forward, 2.5 years, amendments to the international health regulations have happened twice, both in May of 2022 and on June 1st of this year, 2024. And quietly in the background, the negotiations for a pandemic treaty, they now call it a pandemic agreement, have continued. And, I've got a little bit of bulldog in me. I haven't let go of it, got my teeth into this. And with all of the things that are going on in the world, the United States elections, war in the Middle East and Ukraine, and, maybe around the world, this is not the most important thing in the world. I recognize that. But this is something that we, the people, can stop because it's insane. And so I've tried to get it to the point where I think I can explain this in one sentence. Okay. The pandemic agreement is not what you think it is. Unless you've read it, you don't know what it is. So please take the time to read it. It's a corrupt business deal to
Mm.
take money from wealthy nations and banks and all these different organizations to build out the infrastructure for big pharma around the world so that they have geographic distribution of their manufacturing for drugs and jabs. It's corruption. It's
Wow.
it's crony capitalism. It's shuffling money to build out an industry that harms people. It's really pharmacy. And if you think more drugs and jabs are the pathway to health, well, bless you on your way. You might want to start with some detox and some, healthy nutrition and things like
Right,
that.
like you know that I
Um,
do, and yeah, right, exactly,
if
right,
if
right.
you're having a health issue and you're reaching for a drug or a jab, um, boy, you need to do some heavy duty research to understand that you've been led down the primrose path to death and destruction. Well,
Yep.
they want billions of dollars to build out the industry that, they don't have the capacity to do that in most of the nations in Africa or, poor Caribbean or South Pacific island nations. They don't have that manufacturing capacity in those locations. And over the last 4 to 5 years, the people who are involved in these negotiations are completely unwilling to question what was done during COVID. You know, Travel restrictions, lockdowns, mandates, masks, quote unquote diagnostics that, don't really tell you whether or not you're actually, suffering from a contagious disease. It's just a test used to create a case demic. Not to mention the drugs like remdesivir and all of the jabs that have aggravated, and caused health problems. They didn't stop infection. They didn't stop transmission. They are not vaccines unless you accept the new definition of a vaccine, which, is not what people think it is. And so the fraud that is going on here, and I'll be kind. The confusion, okay, of people who are indoctrinated by big pharma, they see dollar signs and they believe that they were shortchanged because they didn't get as many jabs as the wealthier nations got, even when the statistics show that the nations who didn't use the drugs and didn't use the jabs and didn't have the high flow oxygen to damage your lungs, or the masks to make it so you can't breathe and you're more likely to get pneumonia. African nations in particular did about 15 times better than Western nations. And you have to scratch your head and go, why are they fighting for more poison? Well,
Hmm.
it's not about health, it's about the transfer of wealth. And so I encourage people to realize that what you may have heard about the pandemic treaty or the pandemic agreement is probably wrong. Unless you've actually read the document and you look at it, and I would encourage people to realize, this is one page of it, okay? They have
Is that
highlighted.
redactions? Is that
No,
redactions, Jim?
no, that's green highlighting. It's the opposite of redaction.
Okay.
It's them saying this is what they've already agreed upon.
Oh
So
no.
a good chunk of this, they're like, okay, we're done with that. We're, good to go. And primarily, I'd encourage people to read Article 10 and Article 20. Article 10 is about geographic distribution of manufacturing. They want the wealthy nations to invest to build big pharma out where they're currently not, they don't have capacity. And Article 20 is where all of the money is coming from. They want billions of dollars, unlimited, vague details to be worked out later. And then everything after that, Articles 21 to 37, is essentially setting up a brand new bureaucracy called the Conference of the Parties. Now, if you've ever heard of COP 26, 27, 28, this is very similar to the Framework Convention for Climate Change, where back in 1992, all of the nations, including the US Senate and the US government, signed on to a framework. Oh, well, we agree to get a bunch of bureaucrats to have a party once a year, get together, talk about climate change in that case, and whatever they decide, we will implement. That's insane.
Right.
Okay. And so if you wonder why insanity about, energy and carbon dioxide and climate and all that sort of stuff, it's because they signed on to a framework, and a bunch of bureaucrats and special interest lobbyists are filling in the details year after year after year. Well, if you like the Framework Convention for Climate Change, you might love a potential framework convention for pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. If you want a whole bunch of unelected, unaccountable, unknown bureaucrats having a party once a year, spending your money to build out big pharma around the world to manufacture more poisonous drugs and jabs, then remain silent, okay? Because that's where they're headed. They have given themselves until May of 2025, which is the next World Health Assembly, to complete these negotiations. But there is this crazy push right now. They have meetings November 4th to the 15th.
Hmm.
And what they want to do is reach an agreement on what they've been calling a streamlined version of this, the Pandemic Agreement Lite. The parts of this that are green, stuff that I've already mentioned, they want to agree to that as the framework. And all of the issues that are still being negotiated and sticky, and quite frankly, even more insane, they're like, well, let's have a separate agreement for that and another separate agreement for that. Let's push that off into the future. Let's get this agreement in, because what they're concerned about is Donald Trump has stated that he would oppose this. Whether or not he would live up to that remains to be seen. But I believe, and they have stated it very clearly, that they want to get it done before he takes office in January,
Mm.
because the Biden administration is much more, in alignment with what they want.
Right.
Not that any politician has the guts to push back against big pharma. Okay. And so what people need to realize is this is not about mandates and lockdowns and any, your personal health care. People have been misinformed about this. Read Article 24, paragraph 2. It's not about those things. This is about taking money and giving it to big pharma to build mRNA manufacturing plants,
Mm.
drug plants, all that sort of thing, laboratories to go looking for pathogens so that they've got more to scare you with, because they realize that the new gold rush, if you will, are genetic sequences, whether they come from real pathogens or they're just made by AI in a laboratory, in a silicon chip somewhere on a computer. Um, think about the trillions of dollars that were made by the genetic sequence that everyone was told was SARS-CoV-2. They took that, boom, made it into, not just the jabs, but all of the diagnostic tests. You know, billionaires were made just by making, quite frankly, fraudulent PCR tests. I did a whole website, pcrfraud.com. It's a lie. It cannot tell you whether or not you actually have a disease and whether or not you might be contagious, but they use it that way fraudulently. And so the money that can be made by telling the world, oh, we have this new genetic sequence. We need new tests and new drugs and new jabs. Get government to throw money at that. Put all those products in the warehouse. One of the things that they want to have is a global distribution and logistics network. They want to be the supplier, the warehouser, for all of these products. The money and the corruption that is here, if you look at any other business model, if you could make people afraid for their lives, get government to throw billions of dollars for you to manufacture something that you don't actually have to prove does any good, it actually does harm, which ultimately then brings more patients into the pharmaceutical hospital emergency industrial complex. That's a great business model, right? They're not
Mhm.
concerned about your health. I just reported on something about the pandemic fund where they allocated hundreds of millions of dollars for laboratories and all these many different investments around the world. The U.S. government did, and you look at it and you go, does any of this actually talk about health? No, it's investment in infrastructure. It's how do they build in the profit margin for future scares. And people have been misinformed about what this document is. And part of that is due to the fact that the latest version that is officially out there is from May of 2024. I've been working off of a leaked version from about 5 weeks ago. And I expect at any moment, a new version will be put forth. And then, boom, they want to have a special session in December to adopt it. Well, hold on just a moment. Where's the review of the mistakes that were made over the last 5 years? Where's the review of the criminal acts that were done on purpose over the last 5 years? Where's an understanding of, well, wait a minute, that didn't work. None of that worked, right? The travel restrictions, the lockdowns, the social distancing, the masking, the diagnostics, the drugs, and the jabs, none of that worked. But they want to do more of that because all of that was very profitable. And unless people speak up, they're just going to ram this through. And so, what I've been encouraging everyone to do is, in an informed manner, okay, read the document and understand what it is and get out your phone. Most people have a phone or, a laptop or camera,
Right.
or you know somebody who does. Speak your mind. Say whatever it is you want to say. Put it up on any and all of the social media platforms that you might feel comfortable using. Everybody has their favorite and everybody thinks, some of them are lousy. Of course, they're going to try to censor you, But if you don't even try, then you're censoring yourself. You can't trust the mainstream media. And quite frankly, on this issue, you can't trust the alternative media. Be the media. Speak your mind. Say whatever it is you want to say. Send it to me, and I will try to use my platform to give your voice a platform. I've received hundreds of videos from people, and I hope other people will, speak up as well. Sometimes it comes from out of, the corner somewhere where somebody has a different view on it. And you may be the person who records a video that goes viral, and everybody wakes up and goes, "Oh, did you hear what, that person said?" So be the media, speak your mind. Don't censor yourself out of fear or, laziness. Um, Record a video, put it up online, send me the link, and we'll spread all of this around, because any little bit of light will get rid of some of the darkness in which that they're trying to push this all through. With the election and war and everything, this is way, way, way on a back burner, under the radar. We need to bring this to light that they're trying to shove this through. And the last thing in the world we need is more mRNA jabs and more drugs to treat problems that, may or may not even exist. There are many bigger health issues in the world, you know, heart disease and cancer and, leukemia and diabetes and metabolic syndrome, and just the toxic world that we live in, tuberculosis and malaria. The money should be spent not on building out infrastructure for big pharma to go looking for, is there some pathogen in a local bat cave, or in a poultry farm or dairy farm or your veterinarian's office, or taking swabs from everyone in the world and saying, "Oh, you have a pathogen," when we know those tests don't work properly. So if you scroll down just a little bit on this page, this is one of
Yeah.
my latest
This is the what you posted on your Substack, correct?
one of my latest articles. If you scroll down just a smidge, there's a screenshot from one of their latest documents. This is from October 22nd, a couple days ago.
Right.
Their schedule, you can see it says Geneva 4
Yep.
to the 15th of November.
Right here. Yep.
Um, they have it on their provisional agenda to reach an agreement on the proposed WHO pandemic agreement.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, what this means is the negotiators or the delegates or all of the people who are, going to these meetings, they're going to take most of this document and put it off to the future and take the green part and go, "All right, we've agreed to this, so let's move forward as quickly as we can. Let's ram that through." And what they plan to do, it doesn't say so in this document, is they plan to call for a special session of the World Health Assembly, and they would like that to meet. Latest rumor is about a week before Christmas, right? So who's going to be
Hmm.
paying attention to that? And at that point, they want to have a meeting in Geneva with the 194 member nations, and it would be very easy for them to just say, "Okay, great, we adopt it," and boom, it's put in place. Now, this is not the end of the world. This is not about tyranny and mandates and lockdowns and your doctor and how he treats you and all that sort of stuff. This is building the infrastructure around the world to just manufacture gobs and gobs of these products that don't actually help people, because Big Pharma realized that they weren't able to jab the world. They
Hmm.
missed out on a lot of the poorer nations, and they're going for them this time. Okay. And so if you scroll down just a little bit more, this is my
Sure.
call to action for people. Um, you know, I always give everyone my phone number. So my number is 310-619-3055. This is what I said just a moment ago. I encourage you to speak up, record whatever it is you want to say. If you want to remain anonymous, I've had people who wrote out a graphic of what they wanted to say, and they put that up on a video, and they just read whatever they wanted to say with their face in the background. So if you're
Hmm.
shy or you're cautious, you don't want to be so public, you can still say what you want to say. um, Either text it to me, or you can use Telegram or Signal or WhatsApp, 310-619-3055, or you can put it in a comment on any of my articles on Substack, jamesroguski.substack.com. I hope to publish an article with all of the hundreds of videos that people have already sent me. And usually when people see that everyone else is doing it, that's when they jump on the bandwagon. So
Hmm.
be one of the leaders, be one of the people to take that first move, understand what this really is, and speak up about it. Because I think if you go down a little bit more, the way they operate, they've been telling us, that this is coming. Um, if you don't say anything, it's viewed as giving your consent.
Right.
So um, sitting back in your chair and doing nothing or grumbling about it, as opposed to speaking out, you know, don't be silent at this point. Now is the time to speak up. And the issue here is they have failed to allow the public to speak. They have a list of 400. I refer to them as special interest lobbyists.
Hmm.
They call them relevant stakeholders.
Oh my God.
It's basically all of the organizations who stand to profit when the money starts flowing. Well, they want that. They're for that. They don't really care about your health. They care about their business.
Yep.
And if they're, supporting this agreement, they're going to be the ones on the receiving end who are, facilitating, building manufacturing plants and all that sort of thing. And so, there again is my contact information. I encourage people to give me a
Hmm.
call. If you have any questions, more than happy to answer it. Um, you know, why they're trying to push this through, the only logical reason is, they're afraid that a new administration in the United States is going to put the kibosh on that. I don't put any faith in any politician. We, the people, have to speak up and let our feelings be known. And so I continually encourage people to do exactly that.
So, so Jim, on one of the pieces, because obviously this is just for a profit-making machine. That's what the WHO has now become. It's
Mhm,
not, I don't think what it used to be, its original intention was many, many years ago. Obviously, it's for profit, right? It's a profit-making machine, and they see a way of controlling people's lives and medical, get all the medical people on board to control and
mhm,
let them have profit, all this other stuff, and depopulate and all that. And of course, we have all that statistics with that.
mhm, mhm.
And of course, having natural solutions that they don't want us to, share and whatever that,
Well, in
Sweden,
their
sw
definition of pandemic related health products, you're not going to find vitamins and minerals and herbs and amino acids and all nutritional things like that, or pure water or any of the other things that people do. It's all big pharma, with the addition of cell and gene based therapies. So it's like, no, that's not how you avoid an outbreak of disease. You avoid an outbreak of disease by strengthening people's health and
right.
their nutrition and emotional health and stress levels and everything else under the sun. They are essentially the marketing and promotion arm for big pharma. And now they want to be the financing vehicle and the global distribution and logistics hub. So, they want to warehouse the products that they've approved. Okay. I mean, talk about corruption. You set up a World Health Organization to approve the products, which, there's fees involved. It is a money-making venture for them. When manufacturing companies submit products to be approved, they have to pay a fee, and it's large fees. So they approve the products, they want to warehouse and distribute them, and they want to be the ones, they already are, who claim whether or not people are actually dying. Oh, there's a public health emergency of international concern, PHEIC. They declare the fake, they approve the products, they make fees for that, and now they want to be able to warehouse and distribute those products. Can you spell corruption? Okay, it's
Yeah,
spelled
really.
it's only three letters. It's WHO.
Yeah. And it's similar to what Senator Durbin has been trying to push for years in getting the FDA to control our supplements.
Mhm,
And even the FDA with their, they do a little committee thing, and I did a thing on that
mhm,
a year or so ago, where, and I'm just going to unblur this for just a second so they can see it, is they actually tried because glutathione is also used in medical use. It's used in IVs,
mhm,
suppositories for helping to detoxify and immune boosting, right? Because that's in every cell
mhm,
of our body, right? And FDA was
mhm.
trying to get it banned from medical use back in 2022 because they knew all the science has been out since 1970 that this does
Sure.
prevent pneumonia, prevents even in animals, right? And there was a couple of wonderful smart doctors that stopped that, right? And the public was allowed to voice their
Mhm.
concern to stop that bill that he's still trying this year to pass it again. So what's interesting, Jim, and you can just kind of maybe, just quickly clarify this, is that Italy has already passed. I'll just give an example because that's where my family is. Italy has already passed where you can't get like vitamin D, you can't
Mhm.
get it like above like maybe 10 micrograms now. Or, they're
Mhm.
trying to
Mhm.
sell it at lower dosages that don't benefit you.
Mhm.
And them being, having a socialist political system, people have no say in that.
We'll,
You'd
we'll,
have to
we'll have
buy,
to
you know what I
we'll,
mean?
we'll we'll
So
have to
that's kind of,
resume.
I think, tell me if I'm wrong, is the WHO trying to then force different countries to do that, to start
Well,
making supplements almost useless?
we'll have to resume that conversation
Okay.
because the
But
answer for that goes on for days. But I'll give you a quick answer.
okay.
You may not know, but for 15 years of my life, I managed a mom and pop herb and nutrition store. And so I'm very familiar with DSHEA, and I would encourage the Drug Safety Education Act, I forget the acronym,
Mhm.
Drug Health and Safety Education Act. And what people don't realize, and it's very clear in that legislation, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, should be called the Food or Drug
Mhm.
Administration. DSHEA set it up so that everything that's for sale is classified as either a food or as a drug. And food is supposed to be off limits. That was the agreement. It's like, we get to sell whatever food we want to sell and any compound that is naturally found in food. And drugs are a totally different aspect. Pharmaceutical don't exist in nature, patent medicines and all that sort of thing. What's going on with all of this is those things are through Codex Alimentarius and all of the individual nations. Luckily, there isn't anything in this treaty about that. That's going on in different negotiations. This is just a massive amount of billions of dollars to build out big pharma in poor nations under the belief, under the guise, under the fraud that more drugs and more jabs and more fake PCR fraudulent, diagnostics are how you would prevent the next pandemic or respond to it. And that's just wrong. That
Exactly.
what all of the things that they did for COVID failed miserably. They created more customers for themselves by the harm that was caused by the drugs and the tests and the jabs that they inflicted upon billions of people. Well, they didn't get all 8 billion people. A lot of relatively poor people around the world who, quite frankly, are smarter than a lot of wealthy people around the world, partly pushed back against the jabs because they're so darn expensive. Those nations didn't have the money to stockpile them and shove them on their people. So, in many ways, they got lucky. And Big Pharma doesn't want that to happen anymore. They
Right.
want to be able to jab the entire world. They want to have such an overcapacity that any hotspot pops up, they've got warehouses filled that can be moved in. And, it's hard to force people to get a jab if you don't have it on the shelf. They don't
Mhm.
ever want to have that problem again. They want equitable access to pandemic related products because they're financing the geographic distribution of these products. They've already agreed to Article 10, the geographic distribution. They've already agreed to Article 20, which is all the financing. They've already agreed to Articles 21 through 37, which is to set up this new bureaucracy to operate what is essentially, a mafia organization. It's corrupt crony capitalism. Have a bunch of, oligarchs get together, get government money into all of these many funds, and distribute it to whoever wants to play ball by building out big pharma in poor nations. And so if you think that's a great idea, give me a phone call, 310-619-3055. But I don't think it's such a great idea. I think
Right.
it's horrific.
On this Article 10, very quickly, and you said they're, pulling all this money from government and all that. That means, honest, basically, Jim, that means people would be taxed more because the government's going to just grab it
Well, there's
from
there's there's
everybody
no need
else,
for there's
right?
no need for taxes anymore. You just go into debt, right?
Right.
Trillions upon trillions of dollars have gone from the U.S. government to the pharmaceutical industry. What's another couple of hundred more billion? And so, there are funds, the World Bank Pandemic Fund. I just did an article about that. The IMF, the World Bank, all of these different organizations, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, what they've created, or what they have agreed that they want to create, is a coordinated financial mechanism. It's wide open. The details won't be known for at least a year until they have their first meeting of the Conference of the Parties. They're just laying out the framework to have all their, unelected bureaucrats work out the details later, do all of the deals later. Um, Now is a point where they're rushing, that they're having trouble reaching a full-on agreement. So they're trying to rush this through. And, while there are many things in the world that honestly are more important than this, central bank digital currency and digital IDs and war and elections and all that sort of stuff, that's not what's in here. What's in here is essentially big pharma saying, give us more money. And we have the ability to grasp this money grab and say no. It didn't work for COVID. It was a disaster. The harm that was caused from the jabs and the drugs and the diagnostics, having somebody stick something up your
Yeah.
nose is damaging. The harms that were caused need to be addressed. The crimes and the mistakes that were made, and just the delusion that came over the world for the last 5 years, needs to be honestly addressed. They're not doing it. They're not going to do it. They're trying to slam through a business deal. We have the power to say no. A decade ago, we stopped the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The US had signed on to it, but we got us out of that because of people power. And that's what we need to do right now. People have the capacity to understand what this is. And I encourage each and every one of you watching us to get out your camera, get out your phone, whether you want to do, 90 seconds or 90 minutes. Let it out. Let the WHO and Big Pharma know what your feelings are. Let your fellow human beings, men and women around the world, know that, how you feel about it. And, see if we can wake up enough people and let them know that we're not having it. We don't need more mRNA manufacturing capacity around the world. We need to ban that from existence, along with a lot of the other harmful products that the other fake, the pharmaceutical hospital emergency industrial complex, profits from. Until we eliminate pandemic profiteering, they're just going to keep coming up with more fear mongering, more
Yeah.
pathogens with pandemic profiteering potential. And your silence is enabling that. So speak up.
Absolutely. Oh, Jim, this was very wonderful. So, yeah, you're going to be getting some huge stuff from me, video-wise, with the science and
Let it out. Let it
everything.
rip.
It
Let it rip.
responds to you. So, to push forward, and besides me posting it as well. So, really, so much. Thank you, Jim, for giving us this very vital information, making it very clear what it's really about and opening some people's eyes as to what's going on with it and being able to respond timely. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll be talking soon, okay, on another subject. Okay?
Take care.
All right. Take care.